Ready?
1 second.
It's a recording.
It's recording.
Good evening and welcome to episode 24 of Unforced Errors. We've had as many episodes as Margaret Court has won Grand Slams, but not quite as many Grand Slams as Novak Djokovic has won, though he's catching up, isn't he, David?
Oh, yes, he is. Good evening. And I guess what we talked about last episode about world domination from Djokovic keeps going on. And yep, we're a bit late, but here we are.
Here we are indeed. It's good things are worth waiting for, just as Wimbledon was worth waiting for, because we didn't have a 2020 edition. But anyway, this episode, myself and David will be discussing Wimbledon, Federer and Murray, when they should retire, TV coverage of tennis, and we'll also be branching out into TV reviews, all of which later. But first, David, I've got a question for you.
Yes.
Novak Djokovic, 20 Grand Slams. Just how many more do you think he can win? And also, what is there left for him to conquer in the world? He's broken so many records. What is there still to go for?
Yes, I heard today that he stepped out of Miami, which is the preparation tournament before the US Open. I guess it's because he wants to rest after winning the Olympics and then have a rest to then win the US Open to achieve the only thing he's never achieved, which is the Golden Grand Slam.
Yes, I just must stress, at time of recording, he hasn't won the Olympics yet.
Yeah.
By the time you listen to this, he will have won the Olympics.
Exactly.
Probably, but he's never won the Olympic gold medal in the singles before, has he? So that's one ambition.
Definitely.
But he's got 20 Grand Slams. How many do you think he can win?
Who knows? If he wins 2 or 3 per year for the next 3 years or 4, if he stays healthy, he can overcome the 30. Now, one thing I noticed that is different about Djokovic is not only the body. The body changed in 2011 when he changed his diet. But his mentality in the last 2 Grand Slams is different from the past. I think he's more balanced emotionally as well. Would you say that?
I think he's using the anger more. I think when the crowd are chanting against him, which of course they do to all players, he feeds off that energy and he almost enjoys it like it's a pantomime or cage fighting or WWF. So I think he's feeding off that. And when he was 2-0 down against Tsitsipas at the French Open, a lot of people said afterwards that as soon as he started doing well in the third set, they just knew he was going to win.
Yes.
Even though Tsitsipas is a great player.
It was always so obvious. It's like Djokovic versus the world. The crowd is always against him and he still wins everything.
But do you think there's anyone out there? You think he could win 2 Grand Slams a year for the next 4 years?
Wow, imagine that.
Is there anyone playing tennis now who could actually suddenly up their game and stop this robot tallying up and wolfing up more Grand Slams and titles?
At the moment, we cannot see anything or anyone taking down Djokovic when Djokovic is in the mood to win. In these last few months, watching him play like this, there's no one that even gets close to his level. No one.
You say that as a Federer fan, don't you?
Yes.
You are a Federer man more than a Djokovic man.
Look at what happened 2 years ago when Federer played the semi-final and the final of his life against Nadal and Djokovic at Wimbledon. Had match points, played better than Djokovic all match long, and who won the match?
Who won the final points? That's what it's about. So he's Houdini.
He is.
So even when you've almost beaten him, you haven't beaten him.
It's unbelievable.
What about equaling Federer's record of 8 Wimbledons? Is that impossible? He's got 6.
He's going to do it. I believe so.
Think so.
And
yeah.
it's sad for a Federer fan because, Nadal has dominated at the French. Yes, great. That's his home. Then we had Federer in Wimbledon. And Wimbledon was his home. And he was like, great, at least he gets to keep something for himself.
And where's Djokovic's home then? Because he's not doing too bad at the Rod Laver Arena, is he?
Yes, it was supposed to be the US Open. Maybe all the homes will be Djokovic's except the French. There's no time to get 13.
There's not, but he could win it next year. He could be the first man to actually win 2 in a row since Nadal's domination of the French started. But
True.
One of the most impressive feats for me about Djokovic is that he beat Nadal in Nadal's home territory, the French Open, when Nadal was playing very well. And not only that, he did the cross-channel double. He won the French and then Wimbledon in a year when there wasn't that extra week's gap between the French and Wimbledon. So he's wolfing up all those records. But we had a glimpse, really, of a few would-be contenders. But are they good enough? Felix, for instance. We've mentioned Shapovalova. And then there's Matteo Berrettini, who's 25. Is that too old to suddenly stop the domination and start dominating himself?
Berrettini is not really one of my favorite players.
Why is that? Why is that?
It's just not my style
Like
of...
Fognini.
Yes, but Fognini is more to the side of madness. But Berrettini is more like... It's just not my style, but he deserves some credit. Finalist of Wimbledon, and he has the firepower, just like Wawrinka, but he needs something up there in his mind to allow him to do that, because he gets distracted or down on himself at very important points. There was something missing in Berrettini's game to win that final.
He's got the firepower in his forehand and his serve, so that's two big weapons which you can use together. He reminds me of Philippoussis a bit, really, a player from the past, but he didn't play his best against Djokovic in the final. But Djokovic won't let you play your best.
He won't. And Djokovic is not even using his highest gear. He's like, let's just not use too much energy and see what happens. And then time to step it up.
He did enough.
Yeah, just he did enough. That's how he's winning these slams, doing enough.
His jab is enough to knock most players down, whereas most boxers would need a hook to knock you down. But
it's unreal.
He picks his moments. Maybe we're talking about him looking at equaling Margaret Court's record of 24, which no one's ever really talked about. They've always thought the big record is overtaking Federer, equaling Federer, but now that's in his sight.
The true greatest of all time includes men and women. Even though in a different time, different era, maybe not as hard as this era of Serena doing 23 and Federer, Nadal and Djokovic doing 20. But yes, we have to take a look at those numbers.
But I'm going to play devil's advocate. Do you think Djokovic has had it a bit easy and has it a bit easy at the moment in that Nadal didn't, and I wish Stephen was here, hopefully he'll be here soon.
Yes.
Nadal hasn't played Wimbledon at all the Olympics. He's entered a golf tournament in Mallorca. Federer withdrew from the French Open. So have these players kind of lied over and let Djokovic tickle their tummy rather than put up a fight?
I think that Djokovic kicked their butts long enough until this moment has
So they've given
appeared.
up.
They're just getting old.
But even if, this is my argument, okay, Nadal might not think he can win Wimbledon, but he can spoil Djokovic winning it and spoil Djokovic catching up with him. The same with the Olympics. Okay, you're not feeling that great, but just try and stop Djokovic winning it and catching up with you.
Yeah.
You might not win the thing, but you can be the kingmaker. You can protect your place in history. So I personally find it a bit disappointing. I'm not their doctor, so I don't know what's wrong with Nadal and Federer, but it's a shame they're not there to try and Andy Murray too, the news today.
Yeah, I agree. So what about the ladies? And finally, a Grand Slam winner winning another Grand Slam.
I think it's great. I'm a fan of Ash Barty. I think she has a variety in her play, which is always really welcome. She can volley. You don't quite know what shot she's going to do. Sometimes I think she hits a double-handed backhand. Sometimes
she can slice very well as well.
She's interesting. She's taken serious time off tennis before to play at a very serious level in cricket and in golf. I think it's a breath of fresh air, her winning. And it was great. It was a 3-set final because I think that was the first time for about a decade. Is that right?
Yes.
We'll have to check that out. But I think, and it makes a difference, really. I think it was the first 3-set ladies final at Wimbledon for quite a while. And it was a good final. It was exciting. She seems very nice.
Even though there are new Grand Slam winners almost every Grand Slam in women, I really appreciate the variety and the quality of different players that we have in the women's tennis.
Well, I think that's well said. And in terms of creating stories, Emma Raducanu, have I pronounced that correctly?
Ah, yes. Tell me about it.
British professional tennis player who you won't have heard of before Wimbledon. And she got through, and then famous match that she took part in. Can you just pause it?
Yeah, I got...
Be as quick as I can.
Come on, Jim.
Yes, she played Tomljanovic, Berrettini's partner, actually.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yes, and it was a prestige match. I think it was the indoor match shown late at night on the Monday evening, the second week. And she ran into a bit of problems and had to withdraw.
Yes.
And John McEnroe speculated. He said, I do wonder, I don't mean to be unkind, but maybe if the occasion got too much for her, because there was a lot of press attention.
So much.
Kind
It's
of
so
about
heavy.
her. It's a British player doing very well. And the third most read story, I think, that week, which was Raducanu's saying, I think the occasion got too much for me. But the original McEnroe speculating whether it got too much was a bigger story than Raducanu actually saying.
Of course.
It did, and it's only natural it should get quite a lot for her. I remember when McEnroe said it, some doctor tweeted, "Oh, you're a doctor now, are you, McEnroe?"
Yes.
To which McEnroe should have replied, "Oh, and you were a top-level tennis player, were you?" And I think McEnroe said it quite kindly. Boris Becker got in trouble for, I think, saying about a player's girlfriend in the crowd, yes, she looks very pretty to me.
Can you believe the days we live in?
What do you think of that? Did you see any of the Raducanu, or do you avoid the hype if a player is really hyped?
I like the hypes, whatever story, if a player is playing well, but there is this intensity of emotion that is unlike anything that I've seen, because in here we are quite reserved when we share our emotions, but when it comes to the players and team, there's so much intensity. Murray and this girl and all the other players, they feel it because it's in the interviews, it's in the press, it's around Wimbledon courts and Wimbledon area, and they are feeling it. And it's brutal. And the same happened with this girl.
I think in football, yes, it is. The press whip us up. But in tennis, I think it is different to football.
Yes.
Because I think the commentators would say the whole country's excited by Raducanu, and they're really not. And they'd rather see their favourite player anyway. So I think it is different. I think what the press are relaying, press hype, is different to the man on the street or woman.
Or woman. Yeah, you got to say those things these days or you're going to go to prison. They do the same in Portugal for whatever team and tennis player. I think every nation has this really sticky
it's not just
mentality.
Us.
No, I mean, you don't even want to see what happened when João Sousa won the Estoril Open in Portugal. If you ever want to see stickiness behavior to the level of
do you have a Portuguese
cringy, that's the word.
Do you have a Portuguese sports personality of the year?
I don't know. I haven't lived there, so I really don't know. Yes, you got a good point as well, but I think it's too much pressure, and that girl definitely paid the price. Yeah.
Yes, it was a big price to pay too, which brings me really to the BBC coverage of Wimbledon, I suppose. Did you think it was good, bad? Because how do you normally consume your tennis? Is it through Eurosport? And then suddenly you're consuming it, I suppose, through the BBC.
Yeah.
How do you find the BBC coverage? How did you find it?
The BBC coverage. And it's a shame that Stephen didn't make it because he had a lot to say about it as well. It's cringy, it's unfair. Also the choice of
matches they show.
And courts.
Yes.
Where they put in the center court and in the court number one players don't even have fans yet.
Do you think that's the TV companies, the BBC
I have no
influence, who gets put on the centre court?
It must be all part of
Yes,
one big ball.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had matches where we had Djokovic, the number one in the world, playing on main BBC One coverage, and suddenly they switch Djokovic somewhere else to put some nobody tennis player. Just brutal.
The ones
brutal.
I've noticed the BBC have favourite players, and obviously they're going to be British players a lot of the time, aren't they? Because I think you can play during the tournament. Oh, they switch from this match to show.
Don't do this to the number
Norrie.
one in the world.
But Coco Gauff, is it Coco
Gauff is one of them.
Coco Gauff is a player. It's like she's the number one in the world,
yes.
and they'll switch from a very good match
yes.
to show her knocking up in Aronji Park and. Lovely girl though she is and good player, she needs to earn her spurs a bit. I mean, I just think over the years they've had other favourite players. Leighton Hewitt was always heavily featured. Not one of my favourite players, each to their own, but just share it out a bit. But yeah, some very curious choice of main matches. And, they're just desperate to show women's tennis. And sometimes the women's game is the one you want to watch. And sometimes it isn't. But it's always like, no, we will show you women's tennis on the main channel, and sometimes it doesn't merit it, sometimes it does.
I think they should always respect the rankings and the importance of the player and the popularity of the player, but they have to be careful with these choices because they are not making very good choices sometimes. I think there are some exceptions. So this year at Wimbledon, one thing that happened that seemed to be happening more, even though the players and the commentators said that it wasn't more. People sleeping on center court. Manarino got injured against Federer. Federer slept 100 times. Djokovic slept. Serena slept and lost her match. And she was so pumped up to win this Grand Slam. It was all she believed in. And we can also comment on Serena. But what do you think about the courts? Do you believe it was sleeping more than before? Because there was a few injuries.
I think every year there are slips, but there were more slips which affected the outcome of big matches.
Do you think the grass was worse this year?
Well, I think it was more slippy behind the baseline, well beyond the baseline, and players were staying back quite deep. They had less time to prepare between the French Open and their less warm-up tournaments. So, and Djokovic does stay quite deep back, so he slips over quite a bit. Federer slips less because he really hugs the baseline, even at Wimbledon.
But he did slip various times.
Yeah, he did. There's some talk, apparently, of allowing more pimples on shoes. Because they're obviously allowed on the soles of shoes.
They were talking about
but they should be allowed further up the shoe so that you've got more grip on the side of your shoe. I don't know how that works.
But then there's the sliding goes away. Because Djokovic slides on.
Yeah, it's very hard to tell. If you took away the court surface showing a Djokovic clip, you wouldn't be able to tell what surface he's playing on. He's the same on every surface. But Wimbledon groundsman is never going to admit, and oh dear, I didn't cut the grass properly. Yeah, it is my fault. He'd probably get sued personally. It'd probably be a civil lawsuit.
Yes.
So yeah, it was a big part of the tournament this year. And of course, there's that idea in your head: if I slip on grass, I'm going to be fine because it's grass. Boris Becker used to throw himself around.
Exactly.
But as we know,
it's
Serena and Manarino know it's not quite like that.
Especially
it's how
Serena.
you fall.
Yeah, especially Serena. What do you think about her and what happened to her? She was so pumped up to probably one of the last chances to win the 24th.
We'll never know. It was so early on. Yeah, she did seem pumped up for it. Didn't seem in bad form from the French Open. She played quite well at times in that. So yeah, time is slipping away, and the ever-changing cast of Grand Slam winners will probably go on. I know Ash Barty's won before, but she's never won Wimbledon before. So, yeah, it's not looking too good for Serena Williams. Is she playing the Olympics?
I don't think so.
Yeah, I suppose she's won it before. She's so far ahead of the competition. She doesn't really need to retain it. The slam thing is the main thing in her
probably
mind.
Concentrating on the US Open now.
So, yeah, she's concentrating on the slams. And,
yeah, exactly. She wants that 24th, and when she gets it,
next
she'll
up
be happy.
is the US Open. Yeah, who knows? It's crazy women's tennis. Azarenka was looking very good
She was.
6 months ago. Where is she now?
I know what happened to Azarenka. She's still playing well, but just not winning enough, unfortunately. Okay, what about the most attractive player on planet Earth?
I'm trying to think if you listen to the commentary, it'll be Matteo Berrettini. Even the men commentators were saying he's climbed down from a...
Berrettini doesn't even get close to this player. He's box office.
Well, give me a clue.
Box office.
That's the clue.
Yes, he's the most attractive. It is. The most attractive, If you watch this guy play against anybody, including Nadal, Federer, or Djokovic, all eyes on earth are on him.
I'm trying to think if there's a naked player just running around the court who's a male model.
Kyrgios! Hello!
Well, I couldn't comment on whether he's attractive, really. Is he attractive to... is it the personality or the looks?
It's everything.
It looks a bit like a koala bear. Are they attractive?
No. Koala bear, I like that. No, it's when he's playing tennis. It's just...
His demeanor.
Oh, man, and he's constantly talking to the... I mean, it's a wonderful experience to watch that guy play. For the drama, for the... everything.
It is lovely. And the match of the tournament, probably the first round. And people knew it was going to be good because I like Unberg too.
Yes.
I think he's a very attractive player to watch.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a 5-set thriller, 9-7. I think it was indoors. Arguably the match of the tournament.
It was incredible. It was
And
a
what
really
happened
good
to
match.
Kyrgios? What was his route? He withdrew, didn't he, against Auger Assim?
Auger Aliassime, yes. In the first set, he was dominating. And then suddenly he started slipping away. And then he was not ready because he didn't even practice for this tournament, unfortunately.
So he withdrew with an injury during the match?
Some sort of injury.
Some kind of mind injury, maybe.
He definitely was not in shape. He was having muscle pains after every match. You can't come and expect to win Wimbledon or get to the later stages without practicing.
Well, did he not practice because things are so hairy in Australia? They've taken it so seriously. If you leave Australia, it's quite hard to get back in there.
True.
They're under lockdown. Very few of them have been vaccinated.
Maybe there's something there.
So I just wonder, from a professional point of view, maybe he should have stayed in London. I know he used to go drinking before matches in the pub in Wimbledon Village.
Or after. Right? Yes, he was playing great tennis and I really enjoyed watching him again. It's a shame that he does not play more and does not win more because...
We say the word shame with him so
unbelievable.
much.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, what a shame. But
it was a good comeback.
Moments.
He was a good comeback.
But he's capable of so much more. I just wish someone had kidnapped him, McEnroe or someone, and just kept him in the basement and just said, this is what you need to do.
Exactly.
But that would have taken away what makes Kyrgios.
The
freedom, the rebellion, the having a pint with a builder in the pub the night before a match.
That's exactly what makes him. So I guess we
have to rely on people like Tsitsipas instead. And what happened to Tsitsipas? Can you remember?
Yes, and what?
Can anyone remember?
But he lost in the first or second round.
First round, yeah, I think.
After reaching the final of the... Come on, he could have done a bit better. I don't know what happened there.
Medvedev
did well.
Yeah, he did okay.
He did okay.
Didn't justify his seeding, but I think it was the equal furthest he'd been at Wimbledon.
He's on a high now.
And maybe he'll carry that forward to the Olympics and the hardcourt season, which is his time of the season.
Exactly.
We've got to mention the elephant in the room, Federer.
Oh, man.
The question before was, is there going to be a day where he just wakes up and he feels 39? Well, we're watching the day right now.
That was an emotional moment, that last match that he had.
Do you think he played well during the tournament?
Yeah, he played well. He was getting into it. Of course, he was doubting himself a lot as well, which allowed other players to come into the matches and give him some trouble. But for me, there was an iconic moment is Wimbledon. And you tell me what you think. When he lost 6-love in the last set against the Polish player, by the way, very good surprise. He's Polish player as well. He's really funny. He plays goofy and he's funny talking as well, but he's a great player.
Well, he was world number 14, but under the radar.
It was good to see him play, but Federer, again, he did that 2 weeks prior to Wimbledon where he gave up against Aliassime in Halle, I think.
Yeah,
and
his tournament.
He lost 6-love or 6-1 in the last set, completely giving up. He gave an interview explaining that he never had experienced that in his life, where he gives up completely. And he said, I'm not going to allow this to happen again. And it happened again. That 6-love against the Polish player was... It felt like it was the fall of the Titan.
But it can't end with that symbolic moment. That can't be his last set at Wimbledon.
And I think it's not going to be. I'm sure he wants the 40 years old Wimbledon participation.
Well, that would be something to say that you played in your teens, 20s, 30s and 40s.
40s and won Wimbledon
so you
at 40.
played over 4 decades of your life.
Yes, incredible.
And I don't think he'd want to go out with a 6-love thing. But then there's always a danger. He goes out with losing a 5-set first round match next year, losing 6-3 in the final set.
Yeah.
Is that worse than going out in the quarterfinals with a 6-love? I think during the tournament, he played very well at times. It looked like the Federer of old.
Yes.
But if you were Federer, you'd continue yourself. And what would your thoughts about retirement be if you were Federer?
Very difficult to say. I would have to be in his body to know. I know from a good friend of mine, Antonio, who's been in this show before.
Yes.
He had the same injury that Federer had in his knee.
Yeah.
Federer had in Tunis. The recovery, the surgery, everything is really
The
hard.
rehab.
So I think it's really difficult for Federer to come back and win a Grand Slam more now than before, especially after watching this Wimbledon. I think he's not there completely anymore, and I understand. The motivation is down. You don't want to keep doing this forever and against all these young players that can do it day in and day out non-stop. So, yes, I'm...
Well,
it
what's
was
the
a
point
bit
to beat these tough young players who are training 8 hours a day? Best case scenario, you run up against Djokovic in the final or the
True.
semi-final.
It's
You
crazy.
know, I think that boat has maybe set sail. That's the big thing was
Yeah.
those 2 match points at Wimbledon in
Yes.
2019. But it's a different world now. We've had COVID since then, more injuries for him. Very difficult. The big thing, I suppose, I always thought was, could he win the Olympics? The one thing to elude him,
It's not going to happen.
the singles gold. But then I thought that several Olympics ago, I thought that's the one thing he needs. He's gone on for a lot longer than I thought. I thought he should have retired. I thought maybe he wasn't really going to win anything when Nadal beat him at Wimbledon in 2008. And he's proved me completely wrong. He's had some great moments and great Grand Slam
With Federer,
victories.
until he fully retires, you can never say it's over.
I think it would be an awful thing when he leaves tennis. He's been he's
gonna
been
be
been a
crazy.
big part of my life and other people's lives. And I'll say it here. I mean, doing Unforced Errors would not be the same if he retires. I would not feel that passion about tennis unless some other messiah comes down, a
Yeah.
second son of God in a way. Sorry to be melodramatic.
It's true.
But
I
I
think
do wonder whether I'd carry on UFE if Federer retired. Is that big a thing? I know this will shock listeners. Others will be very excited. But if you were Federer and you thought, okay, I can't compete with these guys, I'm not going
Then
to win
it's
another
over.
slam.
Stop.
Would you have another year where you said goodbye properly to all the tournaments?
Yeah.
So you said in advance, this is going to be my last Wimbledon.
Yeah.
So you'd have the big clap at the end, or would you just leave it like that?
like I still remember when the last match from Agassi. I mean, they clapped about for
Yeah.
7, 8, 10 minutes non-stop,
Yeah.
and he couldn't stop crying. I want to see that with Federer because I think they're going to clap for half an hour
Yeah, he's a very emotional person
as well.
isn't he?
Yes, it's going to be a funeral the day that Federer
I think they'll
disappears
need
from
extra
tennis.
police at Wimbledon if that scenario plays out, because people will be fainting, passing out,
Yes,
running on and saying, don't do it, we're not letting you leave until you give us another year. So,
well, let's hope for a comeback year for Federer. At least he's going to have a year saying goodbye.
or he could have a final exhibition match against Nadal as a way of goodbye.
That's also
But then
true.
Djokovic will feel left out. They'll be like, oh,
Oh,
people don't like me.
that's true.
So maybe that's not such a good idea.
Okay, so last episode we talked a bit about Naomi Osaka's situation with her depression, and there were some things that I wanted to say that I stepped back and I did not, because I gave her the benefit of doubt. And I decided to watch this documentary about her situation the last couple of years or so, exactly because I wanted to see what's going on. Yes, people have the right to have the emotions they have, and we have to be careful not to really overjudge, even though on the UFE we judge freely and openly, and it's fun because of that. We're going to hell anyway.
It's fun for us.
After watching the documentary, what was the text message that I sent to you?
I can read you out
Can
three.
you read?
This is text messages David sent me after seeing the Netflix documentary Naomi Osaka. She wants to be the center of the universe by saying she doesn't want to be the center of the universe.
Yep.
And I actually sent one in character as Naomi
Yes.
Osaka. I think she's a sweet girl, but it's quite fun sometimes to take the mick, and I will qualify my comments afterwards.
Sure.
But I got into David's spirit here. I won the US Open and I was very happy. But then I was the defending champion and everyone said I should win it again. And I didn't like the pressure and I lost. And then I felt sad. The
Yes.
end.
And the documentary is full of melancholic music and very slow paced, trying to really represent her sadness. But
There weren't many laughs.
it's a bit strange to me, because why a documentary if you don't want to be
It
so...
is strange. Do you think it's her or her team? Because her team did feature quite a bit in the documentary. They were kind of there, always on their phones, as is the modern way,
Yes.
talking to each other, but looking at their phones,
Yes.
probably counting the number of likes that Naomi's got for
Yes.
her latest "I don't want to talk to the world"
Exactly.
tweet.
I think
Her or her team?
both. She can definitely be influenced and get advice, but she has something about her. She has confidence about her, and I think
Yes,
she's
sometimes,
original and she speaks her mind, and I always appreciated that. And she thinks of other people, but she is also the perfect, ideal candidate for what's happening with the world, with the politically correctness, with showing the face of somebody that goes through struggle, but is still the champion and the winner, and she's so great. But it's something that confuses me a little bit.
Yeah, my girlfriend said exactly the same thing. She said, isn't it strange that she's nervous about press conferences and being in the public eye and doesn't like the attention, and yet she's done this Netflix documentary and also missed Wimbledon and the French Open because of the pressure. And yet there she is a few weeks later lighting the Olympic torch and being the face of the Olympics. It is a paradox. But I would say, David, in her defense, she suffered from depression, she said, and she's been very open about it.
Yes.
And depression isn't something you can measure like a cold or flu
Good point.
or your blood pressure. It comes and goes, and you could be very depressed 1 week, 1 month, 1 minute, and then the next you're fine and you want to light the flame and you're more capable of it. So it isn't something which is fixed like a broken leg where there's a timeline for it being cured. And she is very young. I would say that in her defense.
Agreed.
And it's almost like a diary of a teenage girl. But let's remember, she was homeschooled. She was on the tennis court 8 hours a day. The tennis upbringing of these major players is not normal. She had a father who was from Haiti and one who was Japanese, and apparently that was never quite accepted in Japan.
Agreed.
They were never quite seen
Yes,
as Japanese.
she-
She's never
definitely.
quite seen as American by some people. So she's had a different experience from a lot of people.
Yes, I think if she's depressed and going through struggles, spend time with your family, stay away from the media, stay away from advertising, from documentaries, don't show your face to the world, and recover.
Can you do that as a tennis player? Can you say, I'm not going to have any sponsors because I don't want to go to these sponsors meet and greet meetings? You've got all these expensive coaches,
Lots
like
of
she has this
contracts.
Polish coaches. Yeah, you're tied into contract. Can you just say, I'm dropping the sponsorship. I won't have sponsorship on my shirt. I'll just take the prize money. I'll take the fines by not doing any interviews.
If you are clinically diagnosed with depression, you have all the right to pause or cancel things that you have to do. For example, if your mental health is being affected tremendously and you're really suffering by it physically or psychologically, then it's very important to make a pause or stop to make the person recover. But I'm not there, so I can't say. It's almost
really.
like a soap opera, and we're going to keep following it.
Well, there's going to be another series, you told me too. There are 3 episodes in
It
this
says
series.
season 1, so maybe
So
there's
yeah,
season
watch
2.
this space. But I mean, although it was very slow and very boring, I can't stop thinking about it. I found it funny too, episode 2, where they discovered Naomi Osaka isn't just a great tennis player; she's an incredible fashion designer.
Wow, look at that.
So not only is she talented at 2 things,
Yes.
which made me think maybe I should try a bit of fashion design myself. I'm sure the fashion designers would be all over me. She's got all the top models to model for her too. She says some very interesting things, such as even though she won a couple of Grand Slams, she lost in at a press conference. She said, I haven't got the mind of a champion in that I can't win when I'm playing badly.
Yeah.
And a true champion would do that, which is a very honest admission.
That's what I like about her. Yeah. So I hope that she deals with whatever she is dealing now and goes back to being, a tennis player. And
what a player. I mean,
what a player.
In terms of a robot baseline tennis player, God, she hits the ball
Cold mentality.
so hard, but effortlessly. There's none of the grunting of Serena. It's
None.
this is what
It's
I do.
easy.
This is easy, graceful, brutal power. God help her.
So thank you for coming, and see you next time.
No, thank you. Enjoy the Olympics.